Life in advertising is a lot like balancing on a high wire. Every step has to be measured, or you're likely to fall. That's how it felt, starting my new position at the central office. I was Ellie, freshly promoted and eager to prove myself in a game where creativity clashed with deadlines and client whims. It was my first day as a senior creative lead, and the office buzzed with the quiet intensity of a beehive. My desk was a clean slate, sprinkled with welcoming notes from some of my new team members. As I settled in, the first meeting of the day was called by Ms. Thorne, our department head, who had a reputation tough enough to sandpaper the floor. "Alright, everyone, let's make this quick. We're not here to waste time," Ms. Thorne snapped as we gathered around the glass table in the meeting room. Her eyes were sharp, missing nothing. As the meeting progressed, I pitched our new campaign idea. It's fresh, it targets the younger demographic with their love for sustainability and authenticity. We're not just selling a product, we're selling a lifestyle they want to embrace. Ms. Thorne's lips thinned. "Interesting, Ellie. But let's make sure it's not too dreamy. These millennials might love a cause, but at the end of the day, it's the hard sell that closes the deal." The rest of the day was a blur of introductions, project briefings, and setting up endless passwords for various systems. When the clock finally signaled the end of the day, I was the last to leave, making sure everything was lined up for the next morning. As I stepped out into the cool evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my older sister, Amanda. She rarely texted during the week, so seeing her name light up my screen brought a smile to my face. "Hey kiddo, just wanted to send you a little cheer. Mia nailed her choir solo today, and I got it on video. Sending it your way. Miss you." I texted back a string of heart emojis and a promise to call her over the weekend. My sister and I hadn't had the easiest time growing up, especially after our mom took off with her new flavor of the month and left us with our dad. When he passed, it felt like we only had each other against the world. I watched the video of Mia, her voice crystal clear and surprisingly mature for a 12-year-old. She had that spark, something special that made her more than just another kid in a school choir. "You're going places, kid," I murmured, pocketing my phone with a renewed sense of purpose. Saturday rolled around like a promise. I was finally on my way to Amanda's, armed with Mia's favorite chocolate cupcakes. Life had tossed enough at us, but weekends like these were small patches of normalcy we clung to. I knocked on Amanda's door, the familiar creak welcoming me inside. The aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the sound of Mia practicing scales in the background. Amanda emerged from the kitchen, a mock frown on her face. "Ellie, tell your niece to give it a rest, will ya?" My head's pounding like a drum solo. Laughing, I called out, "Mia, take 5. Aunt Ellie's here with the goods." Mia bounded into the room, her excitement bubbling over. "Aunt Ellie, did you watch the video? Did you see me hit that high note?" "I did, superstar. You were fantastic." I ruffled her hair, handing over the cupcakes, which she accepted with a grin. As Mia dashed back to her room, likely to stash the cupcakes away from adult supervision, I turned to Amanda. "How you holding up, sis? You look a bit worn out." Amanda sighed, pouring us coffee. "Work's a beast, Ellie. You know how it is. But it's nothing a good cuppa can't fix." We settled onto the couch, sipping the bitter brew. "Ellie, have you spoken to Mom recently?" Amanda's voice was tentative, almost cautious. Rolling my eyes, I shrugged. "You know I haven't. Not after the last circus. Why? Has she reached out?" "Nah, just the usual postcard from wherever the hell she is now. Maldives, I think. Says she's living her best life or some crap like that." Amanda's tone dripped with disdain. I snorted. "Living her best life, huh? Must be nice, forgetting you have daughters who deal with real life every day." The conversation turned as we discussed Mom's latest escapades, none of which involved her being a responsible parent. It was old news, but it stung anew each time. Changing the subject, Amanda leaned in, lowering her voice even though Mia was out of earshot. Speaking of real life, I've been thinking about setting up a YouTube channel for Mia. She's got talent, Ellie. Real talent. My interest piqued. That's a solid idea. She's a natural in front of a camera, and Lord knows she's got the pipes. What do you need to get started? Just some basic recording gear. Nothing fancy. I've saved up a bit. Plus, if it takes off, maybe it could help with her college someday. We spent the rest of the afternoon brainstorming for Mia's channel, our voices filled with an excitement that had been missing for too long. It wasn't just about the potential of a YouTube channel, it was about giving Mia something solid, something joyful to hold on to. Driving back to my place, I couldn't shake the feeling of warmth that only a day well spent with loved ones could bring. Despite the chaos of work, this, family, was what mattered. And I was ready to fight for it, come what may. 2 years flew by unnoticed: work, family, and work again. That Tuesday started like any other day at the office, with coffee that was too bitter and emails that were too many. But just before lunch, my world came crashing down with a single phone call. The hospital number flashed on my screen, and a cold sweat broke out across my back as I answered. Hello? Is this Eleanor Jenkins? A stern voice asked on the other end. Yes, speaking. What's wrong? I'm sorry to inform you that your sister, Amanda Jenkins, was brought in today. She had a heart attack at work. She didn't make it, ma'am. I'm very sorry for your loss. The floor might as well have fallen away under me. Thank you, I'll be there as soon as I can. I hung up, my heart pounding in my ears, and my vision blurry. Stumbling to Miss Thorne's office, I barely managed to knock. Miss Thorne looked up, her usual scowl in place. What now, Jenkins? I hope you have a good reason for interrupting. My sister, she died. Heart attack. I need to go to the hospital. I managed to choke out, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Her eyes narrowed, assessing me like I was a faulty cog in her machine. Jenkins, if you need time off again this month, I can't promise your job will be waiting. I stared at her, my grief turning to anger. My sister just died. I'm going, whether my job's here or not. Without waiting for her response, I turned and left her office, her sharp voice calling after me. Think about your career, Jenkins. I didn't stop, didn't look back. Grabbing my purse, I bolted from the building and hailed a cab, the hospital address spilling from my lips like a prayer. At the hospital, I was a zombie, signing papers I didn't read, nodding to words I didn't hear. It was over. She was gone. And then the hardest part came, telling Mia. I collected her from school, the normal smile she greeted me with tearing at my heart. As we sat in the parked cab, her smile faded, her eyes searching mine. Aunt Ellie, why are you here? Where's Mom? I took a deep breath, my voice a whisper. Sweetie, something very bad happened. Mom had a big heart problem today. She didn't make it. Mia's face crumpled, her small body shaking with sobs. No, that can't be. Mommy was fine this morning. I pulled her close, her tears soaking my shirt. I know, baby, I know. I'm so sorry. We sat there, the world outside continuing as if nothing had changed, as if my sister wasn't just gone. But for us, everything had stopped. The cabbie, bless his heart, did not bother us and even turned off the meter. Later, we went back to Amanda's house, a place now hollowed by her absence. I tucked Mia into bed, the silence oppressive. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, surrounded by reminders of my sister, the weight of my new reality pressing down on me. The next morning, I had to make the call I dreaded most. My fingers were stiff as I dialed our mother's number, the phone heavy in my hand. She picked up on the third ring. Yes? Mom, it's Ellie. Amanda died yesterday. Heart attack. There was a pause, and then, oh, well, I'm on vacation. What do you expect me to do? Her words were like ice. I thought you should know. The funeral will be next week. Another pause. I see. Was there a will? Anything left behind? I clenched my teeth, anger flaring. That's all you have to say? What do you want from me, Eleanor? I have my own life. Yeah, I can see that. Don't worry about the funeral. You won't need to disrupt your precious vacation. I hung up, the phone shaking in my hand. That was it then. I was all Mia had now. And I'd be damned if I let her down like our mother had us. The funeral was last Thursday. It was as simple and quiet as Amanda herself had been. Not many people, just close friends and family, well, minus our mother, who couldn't be bothered to show up. Since then, every day has been a sprint through a maze of legal paperwork for Mia's custody and endless school runs. I've been burning the candle at both ends, trying to keep my job at the agency while being there for Mia. But today, everything caught up with me. Walking into the office, the first thing I noticed was someone else sitting at my desk. My stomach did a flip. She looked up, a faux smile plastered on her face, like she was waiting for this moment. Confused, I marched straight to Ms. Thorne's office. She was expecting me, standing by the door with that look she has, like she knows something you don't. Ellie, come in. Have a seat. She gestured to the chair across from her desk, with a too sweet tone. I didn't sit. Why is someone in my seat? My voice was more of a growl than I intended. Miss Thorne folded her hands on the desk, her eyes gleaming a bit too brightly. Ellie, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Your frequent absences have been problematic. We've made the decision to move forward with someone else in your position. My sister died, Miss Thorne. I was taking care of my niece. You knew this. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. And I am truly sorry for your loss, Ellie, but business is business. We need someone reliable. You're free to collect your things. Best of luck. I stood there, stunned, my ears ringing with her words. Without another word, I turned and left her office. Collecting my things took less than 5 minutes. The new girl at my desk didn't meet my eyes. Walking out of that building felt like leaving a part of my life behind. I hailed a cab, sinking into the seat as the city blurred past. My mind raced, what were Mia and I going to do now? How long could we last on what I had saved? Where to? The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Just drive for now, I said, pulling out my phone to check my bank app. The numbers weren't comforting. Rent was due in 2 weeks, and there were still groceries, Mia's school stuff. It piled up so fast it made my head spin. Walking through the door earlier than usual had Mia staring at me like I was a ghost. What's up, Aunt Ellie? Why are you home so early? I slumped into a chair, the weight of the day crushing down on me. Things are kind of messed up, kiddo. I lost my job today, and honestly, I'm not sure what we're going to do. Mia's eyes widened, her lips parting slightly as if to speak, but then she just turned and walked out of the room. The silence hung heavy until she came back, her arms struggling under the weight of her school backpack, which she dumped on the kitchen table. Zipper by zipper, she opened it and out spilled a mountain of dollars. My mouth dropped. Mia, where the heck did you get all this? She beamed, pride shining in her eyes. It's my money, Aunt Ellie. I earned it singing. Mom helped me set up a YouTube channel a couple of years ago. I've been posting videos of my songs. You what? I grabbed my laptop, pulling up the internet as she spelled out her channel name. The page loaded, and there it was, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, videos with views ticking into the millions, and comments piled up like treasure. Reading through the comments, I couldn't help but smile. Mia, this is incredible. You're a star. She shrugged, a bashful smile on her face. I just like singing. But I thought the money could help, especially now. I pulled her into a hug, my mind racing with possibilities. Help? Kiddo, you just saved us. But we need to manage this right. Officially, I mean. Over the next few days, I was a whirlwind of activity. I contacted an accountant friend who helped set up a trust for Mia's earnings and sorted out the tax details. I officially registered myself as her manager to keep everything professional. With the business side tightened up, I dove into the creative. We brainstormed video ideas together, planned out a schedule, and I even reached out to vocal coaches to refine her already impressive skills. Our living room turned into a makeshift studio, where Mia recorded her new songs. I learned quickly, handling the camera and editing videos late into the night. Every upload brought in more subscribers, more views, more revenue. Feeling bold, I used some of the funds to launch a targeted ad campaign on social media. "We're going big, Mia," I told her as I set up the ads. "Let's show everyone what you've got." Mia's next video blew up bigger than we could have imagined. It was a cover of a popular song, her voice adding a depth that the original lacked. Comments poured in, praising her unique style and emotional delivery. As her manager, I kept my eye on the business side, ensuring Mia stayed grounded and focused on her schoolwork too. "We gotta keep things balanced, Mia. School's just as important." A few months later, Mia was invited to perform at a city concert, sharing the stage with local artists who were household names. Watching Mia step onto the stage, her confidence blooming under the spotlight, was a moment of pure joy. It had been a few months of smooth sailing. Mia's channel was thriving, and we were starting to see real stability. Just as I was beginning to relax, a curveball slammed into us. I got a notification that nearly knocked the wind out of me. My mother was filing for custody of Mia. I stared at the screen, disbelief coursing through me. After all these years, now she shows up? And for what? Money, obviously. It boiled my blood just thinking about it. I decided to call her, but not without hitting the record button on my phone first. I needed to capture every word. "Hello?" Her voice was as cold as I remembered. "Mom, it's Ellie. I got the notice about Mia. What are you playing at?" There was a pause, and then that all too familiar calculating tone. "Ellie, darling, let's not pretend. I know about Mia's little singing career. Seems like she's going to be quite the cash cow, huh?" I clenched my teeth, keeping my voice steady. "She's a child, Mom. And she's not a ticket to Easy Street. What do you actually want?" Her laugh chilled me. "Straight to the point, I like that. It's simple, really. You give me $300,000, and I'll walk away. If not, my lawyers will take a good hard look at how you've been exploiting her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was extortion, plain and simple. "You won't get a dime from us, Mom. And you won't get Mia either." She laughed again, that terrible sound. "We'll see about that, darling," and then she hung up. The phone call left me reeling, but also crystal clear about what I had to do. I contacted a lawyer, a good one who came highly recommended for family court battles. Sitting down in his office, I laid out everything. "She wants to take Mia away from me, claim I'm exploiting her. It's all about the money for her." I recorded our call. He listened, nodding slightly. "This is good, it's a start. We'll need more, though. Documentation of Mia's career, her schedule, how you manage her earnings. Transparency is our best defense. Everything's been above board. I've kept detailed records and receipts," I reassured him. "Good. And I'll need to talk to Mia, too. She'll likely have to testify about her living conditions and her work." The thought of Mia having to stand up in court made my stomach turn, but I nodded. "I'll prepare her. We'll do whatever it takes." Over the next few weeks, we pulled together everything. Mia's school records, statements from her vocal coach, video logs, financial statements. Mr. Green was thorough, leaving no stone unturned. As the court date loomed, nerves settled in like unwelcome guests. But we were ready. I had to believe that the truth would win out, that the judge would see through my mother's greed. The courtroom was colder than I remembered any place ever being, and the chill wasn't just from the air conditioning. My mother and her new husband sat across from us, looking smug. As the judge called the room to order, my stomach was in knots. My mother was called to the stand first. Her performance was something else, tears, shaky voice, the works. I just want what's best for Mia. My daughter, Ellie, she's been forcing the child to work all hours, exploiting her for money. It's not a life for a young girl. I want to give her the stable home she deserves. Then it was our turn. My lawyer, Mr. Green, was calm and methodical. He laid out Mia's school records, showing her excellent attendance and grades. He presented logs of her work hours, well within legal limits for a child her age, and financial statements proving that the money from Mia's channel went into a trust solely for her use. As you can see, Your Honor, Mr. Green concluded, all allegations of exploitation are baseless. My client has gone above and beyond to ensure the well-being and proper management of her niece's talents and earnings. He then turned on the recording of the phone call I'd made to my mother. The courtroom was dead silent as her voice filled the space, her demand for money and her threats clear as day. My mother's face went white as a sheet when the recording ended. There was murmuring among the spectators. Mia then took the stand, her small voice steady and clear. I love my Aunt Ellie. She's taken care of me, made me feel safe after Mom passed. I want to stay with her. She's my family. The judge nodded, scribbling some notes. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. Given the evidence presented, it's clear that the best interests of the child would not be served by changing her current living arrangements. The petition for custody by Mrs. Linda Jenkins is hereby denied. The gavel hit with a thud that echoed in the suddenly heavy air. My mother stormed out, her husband trailing behind her, both of their faces twisted in anger and defeat. Mia threw her arms around me, her relief palpable. We did it, Aunt Ellie. I hugged her back, my own relief flooding through me. Yes, we did, kiddo. I told you we would. 2 years have passed since the courthouse drama, and they've been the best years of my life. Mia and we've settled into a comfortable rhythm. She's not just thriving, she's shining, singing at concerts, charming thousands on YouTube, and growing up into someone truly special. One lazy Saturday morning, while we were planning out her next video shoot, Mia looked up from her bowl of cereal with a sparkle in her eyes. Aunt Ellie, you know, I've been thinking about college. I want to study music, really learn about it from the inside out. I smiled, handing her a glass of juice. That's a great idea, kiddo. We've got your college fund all set up. Whatever you want to study, you can. Mia's grin widened. Thanks, Aunt Ellie. You always make things possible. Well, that's my job, isn't it? Keeping our dreams on track. I tousled her hair as she giggled, then the conversation shifted, as it often did these days, to more personal matters. So, how are things with Tom? Mia asked, a mischievous twinkle in her eye. I blushed, a smile creeping up on my face. Actually, pretty amazing. We're getting married, Mia. Her eyes went wide. Seriously? That's awesome. Can I be your bridesmaid? Of course, you goof. I wouldn't have it any other way. I chuckled, feeling a warmth spread through me at the thought of the upcoming wedding. Tom had come into my life at a time when I thought all I'd be doing was fighting fires, both at work and home. He brought a sense of peace and joy that I hadn't known I was missing. It felt right, the four of us together, Tom and his son, Mia, and me. As for my mother, word had it that her latest husband had left her after the money ran dry. I felt a pang of something that might have been pity, but Mia brought me back to reality. You okay, Aunt Ellie? She asked, noticing my momentary silence. I squeezed her hand, shaking off the shadows of the past. Yeah, kiddo, I'm just thinking about how far we've come. And how we've got each other, which is all we really need. Mia leaned into my side, a content sigh escaping her. Yeah, we do. And now you've got Tom and Jack, too. It's funny how life works out. 2 years ago, I was scared, unsure of the future, fighting to keep Mia safe and happy. Now, here we were, planning a wedding, looking at colleges, and living a life full of love and laughter. That evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, Tom came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. You look happy, he murmured into my hair. I am. I really am, I replied, leaning back into his embrace. Life's turned out better than I could have hoped. With Mia's laughter floating out from her room where she was probably choosing songs for her next concert, and Tom's steady presence at my side, I knew this was exactly where I was meant to be. Moving forward, one beautiful, ordinary day at a time.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked. We could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.